Cable Bahamas has been and continues to be a positive shot in the arm for our summer camps. We look forward to it. Without Cable Bahamas, I don't know if we will succeed because we look forward to the funding and we are very appreciative, particularly the Cable Cares program. We are very appreciative to what they do.
We thank the Cable Cares Foundation, which would have given into this program, and it's going to pay dividends in the long run because each one of these children are affected.
Well, Cable Bahamas Foundation has helped us in a huge way. We are out there looking for all kind of help, and I am so happy that the Cable Foundation didn't decline us based on the economy and what is going on today.
So they've been with us for a long time, and we look for them to be with us for many years to come.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, the F&M leader calls the National Security Minister's national crime address shallow and insulting. Renewed calls for an independent criminal complaints unit. As forecasters keep an eye on Tropical Storm Fred, we take a look at the benefits of hurricanes. Plus, we count down the top stories in news this week. I'm Paige McCartney. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on NB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to NB12. Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis branding the Progressive Liberal Party as paradoxical at governance, good at making announcements and pronouncements, but bad at follow-through. This as Minnis takes aim at National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage for a crime address on Thursday that the F&M leader called inconsiderate, lacking in depth, and eons too late.
Then he was bold enough to make a statement on TV saying that 60% of the murders are within the inner city. Who represents the inner city? Who? Him and Christie. The PLP has always represented the inner city. What he admitted nationally is that the PLP has failed. They have failed the inner city. They have failed with dealing with crime. And they are a failure. But they have no shame. You come on admitting, and you have no shame, that 60% of the murder are confined within him and Christie's constituency.
Minnis said it would appear that the PLP has no shame as it scrambles to announce lackluster solutions to the crime scourge. Minnis laid the problem square at the feet of the PLP, saying that since the majority of violent crimes take place in the inner city communities, which are PLP political strongholds, the Christie administration is a failure.
We didn't even know that he was giving a national address. Of course, we, the leadership within the F&M, was at a meeting, and we would have heard about it afterward. I think they did it because they had nothing to say. They had nothing to say. They did not say anything in May when we expected them to report to the nation on crime. And the whole situation that we see happening with crime in this country, I put at the feet of the PLP. Yeah.
Nottage delivered his address after months of silence and after failing to contribute to the national budget debate before its abrupt close in June. His address was announced and came as many were preparing for Tropical Storm Erica. Minnis said the address seemed off the cuff and suggested no announcement was made because the minister didn't intend for many to hear what he had to say.
In terms of tax-free zone, we're prepared to do something for the inner city. When you talk about tax-free zone, that's about expanding wealth, uplifting and changing the inner city. That's what you need. You need change. You cannot continue to do the same thing repeatedly and expect a different results. No, we need change. So not only would you have tax-free zones, but you need a community revolution.
Nottage also announced that beginning in September, he intends to conduct community walkabouts and invited political leaders, community leaders, church leaders, and activists to join him. Minnis said that idea was borrowed from him when he announced earlier this month to residents of Englerston, Centerville, and Baines and Grantstown the need for a community revolution with direct involvement by the relevant stakeholders, including the church. While he says the Christie administration needs to get more serious about its response to crime, Tall Pines Member of Parliament Leslie Miller says at least the police are taking a more aggressive approach. Miller was referring to those police shootings over the past 2 weeks that killed 5 suspects.
Listen, if I'm the law and the fella got a gun in his hand pointing at me, he can be history. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're there to protect the Bahamian people, not the criminals. You point a gun at me, you're gone. Tell the criminals, get lost. But if you point a gun at the police, you'll be taken out. That's their job. It's either them or you. You want them to get killed? What you prefer? The criminal or the police to be on your side? What you prefer? You look at you want them on your side. Well, go join them. You looking at me like I did something wrong.
In total, there have now been 7 police-involved shootings since August 13th. Well, the families of loved ones of those who were reportedly victims of excessive police force have made their discontent with uniformed officers clear. And President of the Bar Association, Ellsworth Johnson, says those people have valid concerns that should be noted, however, to an impartial body. He's calling for an independent police complaints unit for those who believe they've been wronged by those charged with upholding the law.
I've always said that we should adopt a facility that exists in Canada where the complaints procedure for making complaints against police officers are separate, independent from the police force. That brings up somewhat of a conflict, that I must go to your officer in a very small country, in a very small force, and I must report my complaint to them. Not to say that they don't do a good job sometimes, but the appearance. I think that we should go the route of Canada, and persons have been calling for this. The courts have been calling for this.
The Bar Association president says there are many qualified former judges and justices, even attorneys, who can head such a department.
The public has some concerns about the way that the police conduct or perform their duties. You go to an independent group who will investigate those complaints. You have retired judges, senior members of the society who are objective and fair and reasonable, who understand the regime and the law, who can do that. I don't know for the life of me why it has not been done as yet. And while I commend the police, we know that in the past that the police officers have fallen foul of the law. We've seen that in the courts. Some police officers are being convicted for certain offenses.
Johnson says the penal code and the Constitution require that police only use sufficient force to execute their duties in a fair, responsible, and reasonable manner. That being said, he commended police for their tough stance on criminals.
I want to commend them. They've really been working hard. They've been working hard to do a job that I think that parents should do in terms of rearing their children properly, because these are not foreign children. These are children that are born in the Bahamas, whether they be of Bahamian heritage or not. The police are empowered to enforce the law. They're not the law. And that mandate is given through the Police Act. That is to prevent, detect crime, apprehend all the offenders against the law, and preserve the peace.
Well, the Bahamas may have lucked out with Tropical Storm Erica, but forecasters are paying close attention to a new system, Tropical Storm Fred, located near latitude 12.4 degrees north and to longitude 18.9 degrees west, or about 405 miles east-southeast of the southernmost Cape Verde Islands. Fred is moving toward the northwest near 12 miles per hour. This general motion is expected to continue through Tuesday. On this forecast track, Tropical Storm Fred is expected to move through the Cape Verde Islands by Monday or early Tuesday. Maximum sustained winds have increased to near 40 miles per hour with higher gusts. Additional strengthening is forecast during the next 48 hours, and Fred could reach hurricane strength late Monday or Tuesday, but it's too early to tell if Fred will directly impact the Bahamas. Now, while there's always lots of media coverage of the damage and destruction accompanying tropical storms and hurricanes, weather experts say these storms can also have important benefits. In this report, our Jasmine Brown takes a look at how storms can help the environment.
Neely says while much of the focus has been placed on the devastation caused by hurricanes, there is a bright side to the major storms.
Well, there's always a other side of the story. The hurricanes act as the Earth's filter system. Without hurricanes, we would have an atmosphere that would not be able to support life.
Although tropical cyclones take an enormous toll on lives and personal property, Neely says they bring much needed precipitation to otherwise dry regions. He says landfalling tropical storms can be an important source of water that can lessen droughts and recharge supplies. In fact, the storms account for an average of more than
Hurricane occurs for about 60% of the rainfall in tropical regions, and here in the Bahamas, we get about 60% of our rainfall from hurricanes. Without that effect, you wouldn't have an agricultural sector.
The benefits of tropical storms and hurricanes don't end with rainfall. As Neely says, the cyclones also help maintain the global heat balance by moving warm tropical air away from the equator and toward the poles. He says without them, the tropics would get a lot hotter and the poles a lot colder.
Hurricanes act as the heat balance of the earth. Without hurricanes, if you take hurricanes out of the atmosphere, hurricanes take heat from the equator to the poles. That's one of its main purposes on Earth.
And no matter how you look at it, Neely says the storms are a vital part of the natural processes that go on within the Earth. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And throughout history, hurricanes and tropical storms have devastated the Bahamas, but some storms took more lives than others. In fact, storms of the late 19th century and early 20th century were the most deadly, according to statistics compiled by the Department of Meteorology. The deadliest on record occurred in 1866 when a Category 4 storm referred to as the Great Bahamas Hurricane of 1866 claimed 387 lives. And in 1899, another Category 4 storm claimed 334 lives. Nearly 30 years later, two hurricanes in 1926 claimed nearly 400 lives. 3 years later, the Great Bahamas Hurricane of 1929 resulted in 134 deaths throughout the country. In the decades since, deaths during storms have sharply declined thanks to improved technologies, warning systems, and building codes. By the 1960s, death tolls shrunk to single digits, where they have remained ever since. Hurricanes Donna in 1960 and Betsy in 1965 both claimed 2 lives, while Hurricane Andrew in 1992 claimed 4. Other hurricanes that resulted in deaths include 2005's Hurricane Wilma, 2004's Hurricanes Jean and Francis, and 1999's Hurricane Floyd, all claimed 1 life each. And on another interesting note, those deadly storms were all Category 4 and 5 cyclones. Stay with us. When NB12 returns, Bahamian musician KB says Junkanoo Carnival 2016 should be put on hold. Plus later, we count on the top clips in news this week.